Well, good morning, gentlemen. All right, welcome to another Bloodhound workshop. Sorry for the delay there. Mr. Murphy and his Murphy's Law struck again. So, out of all the times, I opened Zoom for a quick little Zoom meeting, Zoom decided it had to update this morning right before the workshop. So, instead of yesterday when I was using Zoom. Anyways, let me finish taking a look at who's in the room. All right. Well, yeah, I do recognize the names here in the room. So, yeah. All right. So I'll forego the workshop introduction question there, and we'll just jump right into it. So, I do have an emailed in question here from Charles today to get us started, and then after that, gentlemen, I'll take your guys's live questions in the Q&A window there. So, and just a sec, I'm just still finishing getting my Zoom windows kind of moved around here the way I like them there. Okay. All right, so let's see here. Our first question of the day came with a screenshot here, which is always nice to have. So it definitely helps explain what is wanted with the question. All right, so let's open up the text, and I guess, there we go. All right. So as we can see, right, a system is mostly, designed here, but some, I guess what I'll call signal shaping is wanted here, right? So you can see there are several bars, right, of a continuous short signal, right? Then we get an individual short signal, a couple of blocks per se, of long signals there, long signals, right? Individuals, and a couple more continuous long signals there. So what's wanted here is, question number one here is block all of the signals, or block the first initial signal if the bar direction is in the wrong direction. Or, yeah, if the bar direction does not match the signal direction, then block it, right? So as we can see all these black arrows here, right? That's a red down bar, but a long signal. So block that signal, that one, and that one, right? So block all of those. And also, yeah, this one here. So we have a short signal, but the bar direction is up. And then with all of these long continuous signals here, right, they start with an up bar, up bar. Let's see here. Trying to see if I can find an example for question. Yeah, for the second part of the first question here, right? So there's two conditions here to allow these signals through. Yeah, I don't see anything here, but I guess so we'll just have to go to the text here, right? So as I explained here, if the bar direction does not match the signal direction, right, on the first signal, right, the initial signal, then block that initial signal. However, if there's two signals in a row, right, so I was going to say if there's two long signals, but also if there's two short signals in a row, then just allow that second signal through, regardless of the bar direction, right? If there's two signals in the same direction in a row, then just allow them through. So, all right, and then question number two here is apparently for other purposes here with Blackbird, is to allow the first signal through. So just allow the first signal through and then block any remaining continuous signals afterwards, right? So, so this is question number two is clearly a job for this signal blocker. That's all that's needed for that there. Pretty simple. So, all right. So this here, yeah, this will be kind of more the learning portion here for today. So, all right. So it's going to take me a moment here to kind of generate some kind of similar situation here. Yeah, I don't think I can recreate something like this here. Let's see. Well, maybe I can. Yeah, we'll see. Well, one thing that would help there, Charles, is if you could tell me what this gray moving average is. Yeah, because I think I'm going to use that to try and recreate, something close to, the signals that you have there on the chart. There. All right, so I already have a range chart open here. There. Hmm. Well, all right, so I guess this email will do since I don't know what that gray moving average is. So, all right, so getting Bloodhound open. So first thing we need to do, right, is put in a file name. So that way, any work that you do gets saved to that file name, right? So there isn't one now. So we're going to go to the main tab here, click save. And let's see, put in today's date. And yeah, I did want to mention, I hope everybody had a fun 4th of July weekend there. So, all right. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we have today's workshop file name in there. And let's see here. All right, so I'm still trying to generate those signals so I have something to work with here. So this is not a part of the question being answered here. Yes, Charles, thanks for letting me know. So yeah, I was asking here, so I'm trying to create something similar, to the kind of signals you have on that screenshot here, and I was thinking, I'm hoping that maybe using that gray moving average, I might be able to generate something similar. So yeah, so I was asking, what is that gray moving average there? So far, yeah, so far I haven't been able to create anything kind of similar. Yeah, so I'm just scanning through this. So it's a 15 EMA. Okay. Well, yeah, so I guess my 55 is a little too too long, too slow. Um, hmm. All right. Yeah, that's not working here. So let's try another approach. Well, this looks like, yeah, we're getting closer here. All right, so at least I have a long signal with the bar direction in the wrong direction, so I have something to work with there. And actually, let's see. I think if I maybe speed up the stochastics, that'll work. Um, Yeah, I think this will work. All right. Yeah, I think this is good enough here. Okay. So just so you guys know here, I'm just using a stochastics overbought, oversold condition here, right? So you can see I have a stochastics using a 5 and a 10 period. So I sped it up here so I get a lot more of these kind of single, individual signals there. Well, at least I got one. Yeah, another single one there. Yeah, and so this is a threshold solver that I'm using here. And you can always tell, right? So if you change the name there and you're wondering, oh, what exactly is this solver? Well, we do have an icon here to try and clue you in, but also right here at the very top of the property inspector tells you what the solver is. So this is the threshold solver. And then, right, so identifying if the stochastic is overbought or oversold here. So the threshold rules are, right, so generate a long signal when the stochastic is above 80 and generate a short output if the stochastic is below 20. All right, so that's what I'm using as my makeshift signals here to work with. So, all right, so let's pop that over there. There. And let me see. Charles has another comment here for me. Okay, yeah, so Charles was suggesting stochastics as well. Okay, great. Okay, yeah, let me clean up the Q&A window here before I continue. There. All right, so yeah, back to question number 1 here. Yeah, so initial requirement here is block a signal, right, if the bar closes in the opposite direction of the signal direction here. So we do have a couple to work with. So great, right there, right? Yeah, so I do need to start marking some of these here. So, all right, yeah, so let's stay in draw mode and there. All right, so hopefully I think I got enough marked here to so we can work with. Let's see. Yeah, let me just mark one more here. There. All right. Now, back to answering the question here. So, simply to remove a signal if the bar direction does not match that signal. And so let's use this right here. So let's go and remove the signal on that bar. Actually, I'll move it up there. There we go. All right, so we'll focus on this one here. So simply put, all we need is an AND node. So let's connect that in there. Connect our signal in. And we need a bar direction. All right, so let's look at this. Let's look at the bar direction. All right, so the bar direction is short, right, because it's a down bar, right? Pretty straightforward, right? Signal direction is long, right? Now, if we combine these two into an AND node, then no signals there, right? Because long signals and short signals are opposite. So, all right. So what would be needed in order to have a long signal still there, right? This bar direction solver would have to output a short output and a long output, right? In order for there to be a long output there still. But obviously the bar direction doesn't do that there. So just know that, simply put, if you want to remove signals on bars that close in the opposite direction, just using a bar direction solver. That's probably 95% of its job is, or 90% of the reason why people use a bar direction is simply to, remove a signal on a bar in the wrong direction, just like that. There we go. All right, so now, right, let's take a look at the signal source here. Let's see. There we go. All right, so this is the signal and the bar direction mismatch. There, so that's question number one. All right, yeah, question number two here. So because we do have, two consecutive signals in a row, then the signal is allowed to get through regardless of the bar direction. So to do that, we can use, let's go to the function nodes. We can use a look back node here. Connect that in. So with the look back node, we're not using the displacement here, so we're going to turn that off, set it to 0. But we do want to use the look back portion of it. So we're going to set that to 2. So we want to look back 2 bars. And remember, a period always includes the current bar. So this look back is saying, okay, look at the current bar and then look back at the second bar. All right. And what we want to know is look back a maximum of 2. There. And sorry, a minimum. Sorry, there we go. Yeah, so we want to use the look back mode minimum there. So, yeah, and so on this bar, Well, it doesn't really matter. Again, this look back node is not looking at the bar direction, right? It is just looking at, and oh, I didn't mark this. I didn't mark that one. I guess, yeah, let me go and mark that there. There we go. Okay, yeah, so we have, right, these long blocks of, continuous signals here marked. So now if we look at the look back node here, right, look back node doesn't care what the bar directions, right? So even this up bar, right, the signal was removed. So yeah, that's all it takes. And then, because we have two separate conditions, and it can be, this one or this one, right, or this one, then we just need an OR node, right, an OR node here to combine them back together as one condition, right? And there we go. So now if we look at this, there, so that's been stripped out. So this signal got through because the bar direction matches the signal. Same thing here. And let's kind of scroll back here. Yep, bar direction matched. There we go. So, right, so if we look at our little short signal marker there, right? So this up bar, this short was removed on that, but on the second one and third one, it got through, like so on, like that. Okay. So that is really, that's the straight answer, or the basic answer for question number 2 here. Now, some others might say, well, all right, what about, let's kind of clean up, let's clean up this situation here. All right, so we had an up bar on the first signal, right? Up bar on the first signal, but we don't want to see any more signals there. And this is kind of getting into the second question here, but we're just gonna, associate this with question 1 here for others who are kind of working with a similar situation here. So let's go to function nodes, and we're going to go to signal blocker there, and let's zoom in, connect that up, connect that in there. All right, so with the signal blocker in place, one thing that you have to kind of figure out is, how long can these continuous signals go for? How many bars can these block of continuous signals last? And kind of based on what my simple system is, probably, no more than, say, 50 bars. All right, so I'm just going to put 50 bars in there, like so. And then also, when you're setting up your signal blocker there, it's really handy to go in and use the actively blocking output there while you're setting up your signal blocker and debugging it, right? Because what it does is I can see, right? So there we go. So we had, right, the signal blocking turned on there, and it blocked long signals all the way to the 50th bar. And then the long blocking turned off. So I can see when the signal blocker, right, is no longer blocking those long signals there, right? Now, but what it also tells me here is, look, it's blocking these long signals. But, right, so what if I want those to get through? So this is where we go to the resets here, right? So if we open up the resets, like so, right? So we're not using the reset connection, right? So we're not using this one. You don't have to turn it off if you don't want to, right? Because it's not being used, so it doesn't do anything. No influence there. And we're not resetting on an opposite signal. I guess that could pertain here. So like, right, we have long signals here, and then a short comes in, right? And so that short probably should reset the long signal blocking, right? That short should probably, but you know, because of the way this system is, this is not the one that's needed directly. So I'll turn it off just to illustrate that the one that is needed is when the input has no signal, right? So what's the input? Well, right there's our input, right? That's our input, and that's our reset. So if the input no longer has a signal, right, which if you recall, right, I marked the signals here with these rectangles, right? So these long signals ended right here. And if you look, it matches up with when the signal blocker turns off there, right? So if we go one bar after, here, let's kind of zoom in here so we can see this a little better, right? So the long signals last until this bar, and then the next bar over, right, those long signals go away, but also the signal blocker stops blocking. And so the next long signal is free to get through. Same thing here, right? The signal blocker turns on, it blocks, right? And it blocks because there's still another signal, right? There's still another long signal there. And then on the next bar, there's no more long signals. And so the signal blocker turns itself off. So, right? So really, in this situation, the input no signal is directly what's needed, but it would not hurt to leave this default input opposite signal. It doesn't hurt to leave it on. So it's not going to do anything for this specific type of signaling system here. It's not going to interfere. So user's choice there. All right, so that was just a little extra added to question number 1 there. So let's say you wanted to clean up or reshape those signals even further by just seeing the first one, and there we go. All right. So, all right, now moving on to question number 2 here, right? So the signals here, right, which obviously I don't have the entire signal source here, right? So I'm just using this single node here to kind of give me something to work with, right? So the signal system here is going to be used for something else with Blackbird, and what's wanted is only the first signal. Let's see here, just read this again. Yeah, all right, so it doesn't say anything about filtering, filtering the block of signals like question number 1. It just says, just only want to capture only the first signal there. All right, so that's a lot easier to do here. But also, right, a second part of this is to create a second Bloodhound instance here, right? So what we can do is, let's see here. I'm going to rename this logic template first, right? Okay, so what we're now that I have a name here, I'm going to make a copy of that logic template. Right, and we'll just call it number 2, like so. Right, we can see, right, this all the nodes here are exactly the same as the nodes here, right? But also when I did that, it didn't create any extra solvers as well, right? So, you know, if you duplicate your solvers when you don't need to, just remember each solver has to do a calculation, so that does impact, you know, your CPU. You know, it does ask your CPU to do extra calculations that are not necessary there. So, like for example, if I selected all of these and I did a copy, and then I'll create a new logic template, and then I'll paste, right? I'll paste those nodes in there, right? There we go. And we can see, right, duplicate solvers were created when it wasn't necessary, not in this case. So sometimes duplicate solvers are necessary, but that's pretty rare. So, all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo this and get rid of those duplicates there, and let's undo this one more, get rid of that extra logic template there. So, all right, so anyways, back to question number 2 there. All right, so this isn't an actual separate Bloodhound instance there. You know, it depends on what this really means here. You know, does it mean you want a second file, right? 2 files of the same system, you know, or do you just want one Bloodhound file but 2 logic templates? You know, you could doesn't really matter there. Yeah, I don't think that it really matters. So, let's see here. All right, so getting back to answering the main question here. So let's go and strip this down. So I'm going to strip everything down. Get rid of everything that's not necessary. Connect that in like that. And there we have it. All right. So there we go. So, all right. So since this is just showing, you know, right, only the first signal there, then there we have it. Right. So even though, right, so even though the bar direction is in the opposite direction, right, that is the first signal there. All right, so we just took the signals and applied a signal blocker to it, like so. And you know, just as importantly, the resets are the same, right? So you'll notice I did not go in and adjust any of the resets there. Right. So once again, you know, because of the nature of this system here that has, you know, blocks of continuous signals there, right? The signal blocker needs to turn off when there's no signal, right? So even on a single bar, right, one bar with one signal, right, that signal blocker still needs to turn off when the signals come to an end. Yeah. So, you know, therefore, the signal blocker was resets. The signal blocker resets were not modified there. We just, again, the important one is the input, no signal. So when there's no signal, that resets the signal blocker there. Yeah. And then, yeah, also, oops, I minimized the wrong window. Let's see, there we go. Yeah. So as I said earlier on, right, it's handy to have that active output, that active blocking output when you're setting up your signal blocker. But then afterwards, you might want to go right and set this back to 0, like so. There. So, all right. So there it is. Question number 2 and question number 1. Yeah. All right, let me see if there's any follow-up questions on this before moving on here. Let's see here. Yeah, Dean is asking. Yeah, so can you use the bar direction solver to block 2 or more bars? Yeah, using the number of bars options there. Yeah, so what Dean is asking here is on the bar direction solver, and zoom in there, right? There's our bar direction. Can you use the number of bars to block them? No, this does the opposite. So basically, counting the number of bars is really almost doing the same thing as our look back node here, where we're right counting a number of bars and then looking back and looking for the minimum value here. So we'll do a little tweak here of this. Yeah, so if I just connect that in there, right? So we can see there that, right, the bar direction is only going to, right, it's giving you an output when you have bars in the same direction. So we do have a block of long outputs here, right? And then a block of short outputs when they're down bars. And so if we increase the number of bars, let's increase it to 3, right? What happens is it's doing the opposite. So it's waiting until we get to the 3rd bar, right? And then giving you an output there, right? And so the reason why this doesn't work here is that this bar direction here is used under a different condition here. Let's put that back. So let's take a look at this AND node. And here we go. Yeah, let's go back to this guy here. Right, so we did have a long output on this down bar. Right, and that's a down bar. So the bar direction, number of bars is not counting that down bar, with the up bars, right? This down bar has its own counter and up bars have their own counter. Yeah, so no, that using the bar direction would be specific. It's a very specific use case where If the long signals only occurred on up bars, then yes, you could use it. But because long signals can occur on a down bar, you can't use it. Yeah, so it doesn't quite fit this scenario here, right? And the same with shorts, right? Sometimes we'll get a short on an up bar. Yeah, so you can't use the signal or the bar direction number of bars there for that. Yeah, so that I think that question really pertained to the second the secondary condition here that would allow a signal through. Yeah. All right, so that was Dean's follow-up there. And let's move on here. Oh, okay, yeah, so Charles was just responding to Dean. All right, yeah, so Charles was just commenting about, yeah, using a separate Bloodhound instance. Yeah, so I already covered that. You know, if you want to break each logic template into its own Bloodhound file, that's fine. Or you could just do it like this, that's fine as well. So, yeah. So, you know, if you wanted to break this into two files, then all you need to do is just, right, go to the main menu tab and just do a save as, right? We can do a save as, and you know, whatever you want to do, call it number 2, save it, right? Save it, and then just delete the logic template, right? That doesn't apply, right? Right. You can just go in and delete the whole logic template there. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Looks like last comment here from Charles. Okay, well, it just sounds like, yeah, Charles has what he needs there. So we can finish off his system and yeah, continue on. So, all right, well, that does it for our first question today. Yeah. All right, well, gentlemen, wow. All right, it looks like we have a lot more people in the room now. So let me take a look through the names here. And actually, yeah, I do see a name I don't recognize off the top of my head here. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, let me just remind everybody here. So if anybody here has any Bloodhound questions, please just go ahead and get those typed into the Q&A window there for me, and I'll get them answered. And while you guys might be thinking of some questions, Bloodhound questions, yeah, let me just ask, you know, for the name I don't quite recognize here. I was just going to double check to see if there's anybody new to the workshop today, or anybody who's fairly new to these workshops. And my question is, would you like to hear the workshop introduction? All right. So the workshop introduction is, I will explain, what these workshops are for, what we do, and more importantly, what is not done in these workshops, what I do not do in these workshops. And then the second thing I'll explain, second topic is I'll explain how the recordings work. So if you do ask a question, right, you'll understand the quickest way that you can get a copy of the recording of your question there. And then the third and last topic here is I'll explain what custom indicators I will install into my machine in case anybody has a question about a custom indicator there, right? Third party or custom indicator. Yeah. All right, so if anybody would like to hear that workshop introduction, let me know and I'll get that done. But also, just, if you guys have any Bloodhound questions for me, let me know and I'll get those answered for you. I guess just a little side note here. Let's see, where is it? So this second question here, about, well, actually, so there were, sorry, it only pertained to the second question here about, blocking signals there. Yeah, and, all right, so getting Bloodhound open, right? So let's see, actually, I'm going to disconnect that. There we go. I'm going to disconnect that because that actually was not a part of the question here. But what I wanted to point out is that, to figure out how to set the signal blocker up, for that question, like what resets should you be using there? Which of these resets, should be used? And how do you know how many signals how many bars you should be blocking for there, right? You could have gotten your answer without waiting for the next workshop here by taking a look at our documentation here. So under Bloodhound here, right, so there's the function nodes and there is the signal blocker right there. So if we go to that signal blocker page, right, there is a video here. There we go. So here's the tutorial there for the signal blocker, right? And so that video will explain how all of these resets work. Yeah. And of course, there's a bunch of like signal examples there. And and there's even an extra video there, blocking signals for an hour. Oh, there you go. Also, if you're the kind of person that kind of likes to see, a written explanation there, here are the resets right there. So if we click on that, it opens it up. And there you go. So what's the input signal? What is the input no signal, which is what was used for today's question there, So anyways, just wanted to point that out, that there are videos there, so you don't have to wait for the next workshop to come around. There, let me put that back on the workshops page there. All right, let's see. Wow. Okay, we are at the 1 hour mark. I didn't think it was going to take that long to answer that question. So, but in any case, yeah, so I will start the timer here because I've only seen that one question today. So yeah, let me start the timer. I'll give everybody, 5 or 7 minutes or so, to think of some more questions and ask me some questions. And as always, if I don't see any more Bloodhound questions coming in, then I will consider us being done for the day and we'll wrap it up and close up the workshop, right? But as long as you guys have questions, then the workshop will remain open and keep going to make sure that I get all your questions answered. Yeah. All right, so in the meantime, as I'm waiting for questions to come in or waiting for that timer to run out, I'm just going to mute my microphone there. So, yeah, drink my coffee. And yeah, if your coffee has gotten cold, I guess now is a good time to warm it up. So, and we'll see if any more Bloodhound questions come in here. All right. Well, you're welcome there, Charles. So, yeah, glad that's exactly what these workshops are for. So, yeah, so as you guys are all somewhat regulars in the room, yeah, you guys know the drill. If you got questions, you just can't figure out in Bloodhound, go ahead and wrap those questions up in an email and fire it off to support, and I will get those questions answered for you. Oh. All right, so I guess yeah, with that, gentlemen, I'm gonna call it. Yeah, doesn't look like we have any more questions for today. So, all right, yeah. So if I don't see you in tomorrow's Blackbird workshop, then have a good weekend, and we'll see you again next time. All right, guys, have a good weekend, or have a good rest of your day, and see you next time. Bye bye.